The Commission on Revenue Allocation is now offering to mediate the stalemate of a revenue sharing formula. The Commission is proposing that the Senate should use the current formula to allocate money to counties for the financial year 2020-2021 as they conduct a public participation among stakeholders to develop a formula acceptable to all the parties. Joining me now live is Dr. Jane Kiringai. She's the chairperson of CRA. She's joining us via Skype. Thank you so much for making time for us, Dr. Kiringai. So, what are you proposing this time? Your first formula was rejected. What are you proposing now?
Trevor, thank you so much for having me. And maybe before I go to that, Trevor, allow me to say that we as a commission are coming to the table, first of all, to listen. And allow me to quote Dean Jackson, who said that listening is the art that requires attention over talent. It requires spirit over ego and putting others above self. And we believe that listening is the most sincere form of respect. So if we're offering to mediate, we then cannot come to the table with a scenario or a proposal. And I want to say, I was looking at what you were screening, and you can see now there's so many variants of the proposal that we put or presented to the Senate in April 2019. It cannot be either black or white. In between, there's so much that can be done if the different parties are willing to sit on the table and listen. Allow me to say, Trevor.
So what is the in-between?
The in-between, let me give you an example of what, allow me to tell you what happened in 2017-18 when the country moved transition from the first formula to the second formula. At that point in time, we saw movements in money. For example, I give you an example. Turkana at that point in time lost 1.9 billion. Allow me to use lost for lack of a better word. That money went mainly to Kwale, Kilifi, and Mombasa, and a lot of dispersion in between. Well, what happened at that time is the equitable share increased by 20 billion. So the overall effect was muted by that increase in the equitable share. Today, we have an impossible covenant. And I call it an impossible covenant because when we made our proposal, we were aware of the fact that once the census data is released and applied to the formula, there was going to be significant movement in the equitable share allocations. So at that time, we provided a clause in the recommendation we tabled to the Senate. What did the clause say? That once we apply new data to the proposal that we tabled before Senate, and in the event there was a county that was going to lose more than 5% of its equitable share, our proposal was set aside a certain amount of money from the increase in the share to counties that would be used to cushion those who are losing more than 5% of their share. And in that particular recommendation, we had what we were calling a cushioning index and had stipulated in our recommendation the counties that we envisaged might require cushioning because of the shift in the poverty data and in the census data.
Yeah.
With that as it may, we are here today. I'm calling it an impossible covenant because there's no fiscal headroom that would allow for cushioning of counties. So in the light of what we did in 2019 and where we are today, it is important that we listen to the variant amendments to the recommendation that we sent. Agreeable with, like
Dr. Kiringai, allow me to engage you for a bit here. So just for 1 second here, because we really pressed for time. A formula where 19 counties lose money and 28 gain money, and you've just said you're supposed to put others above all else. How is that a fair deal from where you stand?
Trevor, let me give you an example. Allow me. Today, if we keep the current formula as it is, the second basis, and apply the new census data, and the new poverty data, because policy requires we use data to inform policy. And unless you're using data to inform policy, then data is of no consequence. So today, if we keep the formula as is, but only update it for the census and poverty data, today, Trevor, 31 counties will see a reduction in their equitable share. So in essence, what we will say, allow us the fiscal headroom that we get in the increase in the equitable share. Part of it would be shared on the new formula, and the balance would be used to cushion the losers. That was the spirit within which we made a recommendation 1 year ago. And Trevor, it was 1 year ago. We've listened to a lot of people, and the conversation that this particular proposal has triggered has also brought it's given Kenyans an opportunity to vent, to give options, and as a commission, we've been listening. So things changed between the time we made.
So do you still, Dr. Kiringai, do you still believe that the formula that you put forth is the best formula?
At that point in time, Trevor, when we did it in 2019, the only data set that has changed is the movement in poverty from 2009, because the previous formula uses 2009 poverty and 2009 census. Last year, the new data set that we had was 2015-16 poverty data. And that also saw a shift in the allocations. Now, since then, we've seen a shift in the population between 2009 and 2019. Imagine the magnitude of rural-urban migration. Imagine the magnitude of movement into the peri-urban areas. That in itself, of necessity, causes us to look at the surface delivery implications of the movement in people. Granted, Article 203 is very clear as to what we as a commission and the Senate should take into account.
Yeah.
It is actually articulated very clearly. And when we did this, I can tell you we were guided by Article 2003 to the letter. It says, make sure
you speak about the census, Dr. Kiringai. The census itself has been disputed by most of those counties. But what would you say to the counties that stand to lose the money now that you're sticking to your guns and saying that was the best formula at the time? Is it still the best formula now?
Yes. Sorry, Trevor, I seem to have lost you. Trevor?
Dr. Kiringai, I was asking you, what would you say to the counties that are bound to lose some money, considering that you talked about the census, which has been disputed, the census figures have been disputed, but is that the best formula now? What would you say to the counties that are losing money based on this formula?
Trevor, the Commission uses a lot of secondary data. Census is one of such data sets. The Bureau of Statistics has the mandate to correct data for this country, and our responsibility as a commission is to use the data that it's given to us. In the current situation, the covenant we have is that we simply have 316.5 billion. Besides cushioning, we were very clear in our recommendation, and this is a practice that is undertaken globally. In India, in South Africa, when you have a new formula that sees such shifts in allocations, you implement it in a phased manner. You do not have to do it all in 1 year. So the situation we are in today requires a meeting of minds. And let me give you another example. In 2017, the second basis was first rejected by the committee, the Senate Committee of Finance. But what happened? They sent it back to the Commission and said, CRA, we don't like 1, 2, 3 things. Please take it back, tweak it, and then bring it back to us. They also sat together with the Commission to align a consensus. This is sort of where we are today. Yes.
All right. Dr. Jane Kiringai, sorry, we're running out of time here. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. We'll see what the senators come up with tomorrow. They're sitting for the record 8th time. That's Dr. Jane Kiringai. She's a chairperson, CRA. We'll see how that turns out tomorrow.